Hi, my name is Mari, and I am a teaching assistant for the Young Scientists Program at USC. Today we're going to be doing a lesson called Shapes of the Land. To begin, what is geology? So geology is the study of the earth and its physical structure. Geologists sometimes study what are called landforms, and a landform is a natural feature on Earth's surface. Landforms can be caused by a lot of different things, from shifting of tectonic plates, like we learned in the volcano lesson, or weathering and erosion, like we learned in last week's lesson. But for now, we're just going to look at a couple different types of landforms that are on Earth's surface. First off, we have mountains, and mountains are formed from shifting of tectonic plates, like we talked about with volcanoes. And they're very, very large rock formations that exist in many different parts of the world, even here in California. The next landform we're going to talk about is hills. And hills are similar to mountains, but they're not as tall, and sometimes they have grass on them, or they can be rocky, but they are not quite as tall as mountains. Next, we have plateaus. And plateaus are also very similar to mountains and hills, but the thing that makes plateaus unique is that they have flat tops. So they're very tall, but at the top, instead of being either steep or rounded, they are very flat on the top. So in between these hills or mountains or plateaus can exist these things called valleys. And valleys are the low point between mountains or hills or plateaus. And sometimes valleys can have rivers running through them, which leads us to our next landform, which is a river. And so a river is just a flowing body of water that usually dumps out into a lake or an ocean. And so our next landform is actually a lake, which is a stagnant body of water that can be either really large or rather small, but it is sometimes has rivers running into it, sometimes not. And there are a lot of lakes in Midwestern United States, and they exist just about all over the world. The next landform that we're going to talk about are plains. And plains are wide open spaces. A lot of them have grasslands, or they grow crops for food and other things. And plains are very common through the middle of the United States. Next, we have deserts, which are very common here in California. They also exist in other parts of western and southern United States. But deserts are very sandy, very dry areas of the country. Our next landform is an island, and an island is a body of land that is completely surrounded by water on all sides. Next, we have a peninsula, and a peninsula is similar to an island. However, a peninsula is connected to land on one side and has water surrounding on three sides. So now let's take a look at how some of these landforms connect to erosion that we learned about last week. So valleys, lakes, and rivers can all be formed by erosion. And rivers can also cause erosion along the riverbanks. And remember, erosion is the movement of rocks through natural processes. So all of those areas where things are kind of carved out of the ground or carved out of the land, all of those can be caused by erosion. So our activity today is we are going to be making a Play-Doh landscape. So all you're really going to need is Play-Doh and a surface to work on. And what I want you to do is I want you to make a fun landscape with your Play-Doh made up of all the different types of landforms that we just learned about. So take a couple minutes to make your landscape. You can pause the video and try to include as many different elements and different landforms as you can. So this is what my landscape looked like. As you can see, I have some mountains, some valleys, a river running into a lake that has an island on it. There's a plateau and a hill, and even some archway landforms that we didn't talk about, but they also exist a lot in Utah. And so, as you can see, you can get very creative with what type of landscape you want to build, and you can have all these different elements, but ultimately, it's up to you how you want to create your landscape. So next I want you to look around you when you're at home and see if you can find any different types of landforms near you or different landforms that you visited in your life, whether you've been to the mountains or whether you've been to a lake or a river or you've seen the plains or the desert, whatever you've seen near you, think about it. For those of us who are in California, mountains are very common, deserts very common. There's quite a few lakes and hills and valleys. We actually kind of live in a valley here in Los Angeles area. So there are landforms all around us, and kind of think about, why do you think that some landforms exist in certain parts of the world even, and why they don't exist in other places? So at the beginning of this video, I kind of told you what geology was, and so this is Farouk El-Baz, and he is a geologist. He is an Egyptian American, and he worked with NASA to study different landforms on the moon, because while we have landforms on Earth, there are also different landforms on the moon, and he helped to plan where the astronauts would land on the moon so that they would be safe and they would land without any issues. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you got to learn a little bit about some of the landforms around you.